some people rolling in, but welcome to the webinar today. I'm Allie Stevens with the Florida SBDC at UNF, and this is the Foundational 5 for Nonprofits, presented by Elizabeth Pampalone and Linda Ford. You are in esteemed hands. These ladies know what they're talking about. I just want to go over a couple housekeeping items. As Elizabeth mentioned, if you have questions throughout the presentation, please enter them into the question section of your control panel, and we'll be monitoring them throughout, but we'll really get to them at the end of the presentation. Also, you will be receiving a survey after the presentation today to please share your feedback with us. It's constantly helping us improve and cater our webinars and planning our training events, especially in these crazy times we're in. So any and all feedback is welcome. We appreciate it. One final point is that this is being recorded, and you will have access to the recording after the webinar today. It will get sent out along with any handouts or materials that the speakers may or may not mention throughout their presentation. So be on the lookout for that. And without any further ado, I am going to hand it over to Linda.
Thank you, Allie. I appreciate the introduction. So Elizabeth and I are very excited to present this information to you and to help you get set up and running and give you some tools to do that. I'm going to show mostly websites. My webcam is still having some issues. It'll connect for a few moments and then automatically disconnect. But what I'm going to show you is some websites. So seeing those sites is far more important than seeing me. The first item I want to talk to you about today is something that's often missed by nonprofits because they're just not aware of it. It's a little bit obscure, it's a little bit unusual, but if you're going to solicit for contributions, you have to register on the Department of Agriculture's website to do so. This is the website for it, so www.fdacs.gov. You can just search in your internet toolbar, or you can copy this web address at the top of my screen to get to it. They have updated information just like any other website does, but the biggest thing that you're going to want to use is this online registration tool. And if you're a charitable organization, a professional solicitor, or a professional fundraising consultant, you can use this online registration tool. It's very easy to use. You have to set up an account to do it. And once you set up the account, it'll walk you through the process of it. Now, if you're a small charitable organization, and I get this question a lot from those who are just starting up, well, do I have to do that? I don't have any money coming in. You do, but you may use the small charitable organization sponsors application here on their website to complete that information. Now, to be a small organization, you have to have less than $25,000 in total revenue in the immediately preceding year. But here's the tricky part, and this is down here in this note, but if you exceed $25,000 in revenue at any time, then the small exemption is null and void. So you have to keep track of that revenue as you're going and understand that it very well could be voided in the process of your year. So it's very important to keep track of that. And I'm trying my page change for us so we can look at what the site looks like. Well, I'll keep talking while I'm thinking. For whatever reason, I'm having internet issues this morning. However, the application comes with several pages of instructions first, and it talks about things that you really need to make sure to complete. And it really very specific, and that I definitely want to make sure that you look at as you're doing this application is the frequently asked questions section. Some of them seem pretty obvious. For example, one of them is asking if you must sign the form or not, and yes, you must sign the form. However, if you don't know the answer to a question, they ask what you need to do, and if you don't know the answer to that question, you may not leave it blank. Okay, now it's going to switch over for me right in the middle of talking about frequently asked questions. Okay, so this is the small application. These are several pages are instructions, so I apologize, I'm not intending for you to focus on them. I'm scrolling down to the form itself, and you'll just complete with the legal name of organization, your address, and information about your organization. It's fairly easy to do, but it is extremely important for your organization. So I would suggest that you have a professional look over it. If you don't want to have a CPA do it, there are a lot of resources out there for assistance, including the Small Business Development Center at UNF that can help with getting these types of items together. So make sure that you have that application and sure you review your frequently asked questions, because these items are very important. If your financial statements aren't completed by the time that this is required each year, they really won't submit it anyway, even though your 990 is not due yet. There's an automatic extension, and they don't recognize IRS extensions. So it's to work with your tax provider to make sure that the form is completed in a timely fashion. The next item I want to talk to you about today is going to be Form 1023 and 1023EZ. And you can find information on the IRS website at www.irs.gov, and you can search for Form 1023, and this page will come up and give you information. Form 1023 is now required to be filed electronically on pay.gov, which can be frustrating and difficult because there are a lot of pieces of information that have compiled to complete your Form 1023. So the biggest question is, do I file the EZ or do I file the whole form? And you can determine if you file the EZ form by looking at the instructions. And thankfully now my links want to work properly. And the who can file this form section, it gives you the eligibility worksheet. And you have to be able to answer no to every one of these questions to be able to complete Form 1023 EZ. If you expect that your annual gross receipts are going to exceed $50,000 in any of the next 3 years, and this is a projection, this is an expectation. If you answer no to that, then you move on to the next question and you can potentially use the 1023 EZ. However, if you genuinely expect that those revenues are going to exceed $50,000 in the first 3 years, answer yes, stop, and you'll need to complete the Form 1023. The Form 1023 has multiple schedules. We highly recommend that you have a professional assist you with the process. And the reason we recommend that is oftentimes we see the 1023 being rejected or sent back because a question might not be answered properly. The IRS does a wonderful job of wording the questions in such a way that they're confusing. And we've seen several people set up a private foundation when they intend to set up a not-for-profit or a true 501c3. And it's easier to get it right on the front end than it is to go back and fix it. So if you're just in that starting stage, you're getting ready to set up, and you need to find out if you need a 1023 EZ or Form 1023, we would invite you to come in and talk to us for a consultation free of charge to help you determine what that is. We would invite you to go to the Small Business Development Center. What a great, great resource they are to help get that information vetted before you start the process, because once you start that 1023 and you submit the information, you may find out you've got a struggle that you didn't have to have. My third item that I want to talk about today, that I'll probably talk a little bit more about than the 1023 itself, is Form 990. So if you complete your Form 1023 and you get your letter of determination from the IRS, and it says that yes, you are a 501c3 in whichever form is appropriate for you, you'll have to complete a 990 form. And that 990 form can come in many different flavors. It could be an I-90N, which means you have less than $50,000 in gross revenue in a year. It could be a 990 Easy, which would mean you have less than $200,000 of gross receipts and less than $500,000 of assets. Or it could be a full 990 with all of the appropriate schedules that come along with it. And the trick with that is some of schedules have blanks on. So you'll start to fill out your schedule and you'll get to question 8. And if you answer yes or no to question 8, it will determine whether you need to finish that particular schedule. So we highly recommend having a professional assist you with completion of your 990 and ensuring that it is correct. One of the things that the IRS has recently implemented is that 990s are going to have to be electronically filed. So they're not going to allow for paper filing of these forms any longer. Unless, of course, they have to have exceptions, right? It's the IRS. So unless you have a name change, unless it's a short period, you're changing your fiscal year perhaps, and you have a short period, unless your application is pending for your not-for-profit status. So even if you've applied for your not-for-profit status and you're raising money and you're operating as a not-for-profit and you don't have that status back yet, you're still required to complete your 990 form at the end of the fiscal year. This is why, again, we encourage you to use all the time and all the resources available to you to get that 1023 application in as early as possible. Another exception to electronic filing is if the return's being filed before the end of the year. And this is a little unusual because it says unless the return is being filed for the end before the end of the year, except if it's a final return. I don't know of any other reason why you would be filing your 990 before the end of the year unless it was a final return. So I think someone wrote that and perhaps didn't understand or maybe came up with some exception where that could be the case, but it would be very unlikely. And the last exception to electronic filing is if it was rejected. So you tried to submit the 990 electronically and it was rejected, you may paper file it. However, you have to try to fix those rejections. So the IRS doesn't automatically give you a pass on completing those rejections. The 990 is the first couple of pages is very straightforward. As you get into it, you see that there's a lot of information, and I'm going to come back to this 4A section in just a minute because that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. Question and answer section can be very complex, and you have to make sure you get these questions right because they send you to the next schedule and the next section of the 990. So please take advantage of using a professional to have it prepared. Use someone who works with nonprofits on a regular basis. We've seen clients come in who have had a very competent business tax preparer complete their 990 and it's incorrect because they're not used to doing it. They're not used to all of the nuances that are required for it. And this 990, as we'll talk in just a little bit, tells a story for you. It really gives information that other entities need about you. So keeping with our jam-packed process here, records retention is another of these 5 foundational items that you really, really need for a nonprofit. Grant Space by Candid has a wonderful article on how long nonprofit organizations should retain their business-related records. And interestingly enough, it refers you to the 990 instructions also, because those 990 instructions talk about what's required for that informational return. There is a 21-page IRS compliance guide for charities that gives some clarity about keeping your records. And it's actually a very good compliance guide. It's got a lot of information in it. I'll let that start loading while I talk for items. There is also guidance from GrantSpace that suggests conducting an internet search and search state of Florida, Georgia, whatever the case may be, document record retention policy, and that will help you get information about your specific state's recommendations. And then GrantSpace also suggests a couple of websites, and this is www.grantspace.org, and you can just search records retention, or you could search GrantSpace records retention and this article will come up for you. And it gives you some document retention policies for the National Council of Nonprofits. And Blue Avocado has a model document retention policy for nonprofits, both great sources to have at your fingertips. We'll see our application has popped up for us yet. It's trying very hard this morning. We'll give it just a second to load. Or two. Unfortunately, the IRS websites reload and refresh constantly, so preloading them doesn't always produce results. But I would recommend this guide for you. It's publication 4221, and I would recommend this guide for you whether you need records retention policy assistance or whether there's something else that you might want to make sure you have. It's got required public disclosures in it. It's got resources for public charities, as well as a significant amount of other information. It is clickable, so if you're using it on a computer rather than printing it out, it will take you to each section as you go through it, including information on which form, which version or flavor of the 990 would be appropriate for you. And starting on page 14, it talks about keeping the records, what records should be kept, and how long they should be kept. Starts on page 18. And maybe it'll jump there for me quickly. And it's saying I'm experiencing degraded bandwidth, so we have to load. So typically, information returns can be reviewed for the 3 historical years. So that's what this section is talking about, that for federal tax purposes, you've got to keep that information for 3 years. But it also talks very specifically about permanent records, employment tax records, and records for non-tax purposes. So I highly recommend this publication. Again, it's publication 4221 and can be retrieved from the IRS website. It can be printed or used electronically, whichever way works best for you. Now, this is jumping back to talking about this section 4 in the 990. Program descriptions. Descriptions are vital to your organization, and that portion of 990 is critical in terms of ensuring that you get the right information out to potential board members, donors, and potential professionals. I have pulled up this Journal of Accountancy article, and you can Google it as well, IRS Form 990 for not-for-profits from the Journal of Accountancy. It's really got some great information. There's basically 3 scenarios where you want to ensure that your information is out there and telling your story. The first scenario they give is that a new funding organization requires a financial audit, and the executive director reaches out to a CPA to inquire about the audit. Well, the first place I'm going to go as a CPA is I'm going to go out and look up your 990 to get information about you. And I actually do this when someone comes to me for a proposal for their 990 or for their audit. I'm going to go out and look at that 990. I'm going to understand a little bit more about the organization, the size of it, and the availability of funds. And telling your story there is important. It's important to know. Another scenario would be if you're applying for a grant, and gosh, this is absolutely critical to your organization. Your 990 is going to be looked at when you're applying for a grant. So make sure to tell your story. Make sure that you show your passion in your description of your programs and your mission. And then a third example is a person's been asked to serve on a board, and before accepting that offer, they go out and examine the organization's 990. So you've got to have that best face forward when your board members are out there looking at you as well. All this information is public, of course, so it's critical to describe what you're doing, what good you're doing, and be quantitative about it. It's very, very important to be able to describe in detail how many people you've helped, how you've helped them, where you've helped them, and give specifics on it. This article is a great article. It's got a nice chart here about who the users of that 990 are and what their non-financial objectives are. And it also talks about the narrative sections. We encourage our partner nonprofits to fill out that section 4 fully, but don't overfill it, because if you have too many words in this section, it will flow over to Schedule O, and then the reader of the financial statements has to go look for it. So we encourage rewrites and adjustments every year of that information to ensure that you're completely telling your story, but you're not losing the reader's interest by having it pull over to Schedule O and having them go look for it. Absolutely critical to make sure that you're telling your story. And again, that was a Journal Accountancy article that you may want to go back and read in detail. Okay, so we promised you also a free bonus each, and what I'd like to talk to you about today is accreditation. And it's very interesting that there are a lot of organizations out there that do accreditation for nonprofits. We've all heard of GuideStar, where you can look up someone else's 990 and their transparency level. But there are other organizations that also do accreditation for nonprofits, and you want to make sure that you are getting the right bang for your buck. The Better Business Bureau actually does a great accreditation for nonprofits. For Jacksonville, Florida, there are 96 nonprofit organizations that are accredited. I'm going to use Anaheim Family YMCA in Anaheim, California as today's example, simply because they have a full accreditation on the page. But you can look up by their accreditation. They have a comprehensive accreditation process. So I would say before you start doing it, something you really want to do, really committed to, because you certainly don't want to have a few green checks and a lot of yellow X's and red exclamation points in the process. It can lend credibility to your organization that you otherwise wouldn't get. And of course, then you can use the logo and all of the information on your site that shows that you're accredited. And here's what the standards for accountability look like. Better Business Bureau, board size, board meetings, measure effectiveness, finances, and they look at your fundraising and info. Each of these items is clickable and has a description of what that information is and what the specifics are for it. So I encourage each of you to look at the Better Business Bureau's website and look at the accredited charities section and read what each of these are and determine if you've already got these, would make sense for you to go through the process and get accreditation from the Better Business Bureau, and then be able to share that also with fundraisers and with potential donors to be able to further your organization. So our foundation 5 this morning for accounting, again, is register with the Department of Agriculture. Make sure you file your 1023 or 1023 EZ and have them be accurate. Understand your Form 990 and all of its variations or flavors. Make sure you understand record retention because it can be very critical. Tell your story. And your free bonus is to look into accreditation entities. I'm going to change the presenter here so that our wonderful Elizabeth can tell us some great, I'm really looking forward to this, some great marketing tips. Okay, Elizabeth, you should now enter.
All right, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna show my screen here. Let me pull this up. All right, close everything out. So we've got a clean, clean slate, only us working here together. So my name is Elizabeth Pampalone, and I'm so glad that you all have come out today to just absorb some information and really get a grasp on, the foundational 5 from the financial side of things, the tax side of things, which that is not my bag of tricks at all, and also the marketing side of things. So I'm going to go ahead and share my presentation with you today. And let me go ahead and hit this here so we can present. Perfect. All right. So again, my name is Elizabeth Pampalone. I am a speaker, consultant. I do a lot of different things. And I try to solve problems mainly. And I want you guys to, like I said, put those questions in the question section so that when we're done here, we can go ahead and answer all of them, because we're really here for you guys. And we want to give you the best information we have, and so that you can make the best decisions you can for your nonprofit. Okay. Marketing, a lot of people have misconceptions about marketing. So I want to kind of dispel a little bit of that. It is not about convincing people that what you have or what you're trying to do, right, for others is worth it. They will already be convinced of this if they're your right customer. It is about persuading them of the value and why they need this in their lives, whether it's the fact that they need to volunteer, whether it's the fact that they need to donate or share what you're doing with others, even just that simple thing, that free thing they can do. So this really does encompass everything from fundraising on a monetary level to volunteering to just getting the word out there about what you're doing to maybe the donors and other donors or constituents even. So we really want to, utilize that and utilize marketing for all of those aspects. All right. So, and I said all that, yeah, I know it's all me. I believe that there are 5 pillars of marketing. And the first one is your brand. And if you can see in this picture here, she has a cup and it has probably coffee in it, right? Well, in this picture, I'm sure all of you can kind of guess who this is, right? This is what kind of cup? We all know which one it is, right? It's a green label with a mermaid on it. That is Starbucks. Now, they are a brand. They know everything about branding. Same with Apple, Nike. You think of a brand that's big and you'll know that they know their stuff when it comes to branding. And the other thing is, so do you. You know their stuff when it comes to branding. If you see a picture of a puma, you're going to think of the brand Puma. If you see a picture of a check mark that looks like a swoosh, you're going to think of Nike. If you see an apple that has a bite out of it, whether it's in a rainbow or whether it's silver or black or white, you're going to think of Apple. So there's a lot of things that come around the imagery of this, of a brand. And so when you think about creating a brand, maybe you already have, you say, I have a logo, Liz, I don't need a logo. I've got my colors, our brand is set, just move to the next thing. The thing about branding is it can always be improved, and it has to evolve and change and ebb and flow with what you're doing. Maybe you've slightly changed your mission. Maybe you've pivoted because of COVID. Maybe you've, changed some of the things you're doing over the years if you've been doing this a while. Maybe you're just starting out and you're like, well, my cousin made a logo and it's great. The thing about branding is once you settle on it in the initial stages, it's how people come to recognize you. And it's what you use to push out there. So I'm going to step back through a few of these slides really quickly. And if I want you to just look at this slide just for a second, I'm going to step back. Here we go. Let me go back here. All right. There's some gold on this slide. This slide has green, and this slide has green. My main color for my brand is green. I'm actually wearing green today. If you didn't see it if you can see the camera, I'm wearing green. So green, this green color, this Kelly green, the green that's in my shirt, is very, very important to my brand. Okay. I wear it when I speak. I wear it when I give talks. I wear it when I'm on even Zoom calls. And then the gold color is my accent. I use that everywhere. So if you've ever seen the girl in the green dress, that would be me. If you've ever seen anything that I've put out from our company called Beyond the Cause, and we specialize in nonprofits, you see the green heart, you see me in the green dress, you see all that stuff. Now, I'm not just talking about color, because color does play a huge role, as I've described. And just like we saw with the Starbucks logo, we saw a little green underneath her fingers in that cup, and we can tell that it's Starbucks. So that's part of it. The other part is the psychology of consistency. And if we have a brand and we have a logo that's solid, that we can build our entire nonprofit on top of, right? We need something that we can foundational, right? We're talking about foundational 5. You need that foundational piece that you can build on top of. That brand is so important. The colors you choose, the fonts you choose, the way you display it, whether it's horizontal, vertical, a square, a circle, a triangle, all of those things go into how people perceive the brand and how they perceive the whole company, the whole nonprofit, whatever it is you're trying to do, the cause, everything. So if you've ever seen, maybe some of the recent events have brought some logos and things to mind and to the news and all that you may not have seen before, or may have been not as prevalent as they are now. And you can really tell the messages they're trying to send using their brands, and how their brands, if not consistent, can be confusing. So maybe one time, a group may be putting out this color logo, and then it's this color, and the font has changed, and now the name is slightly changed, and all these things keep changing because of the different groups that are using it, rather than having a united brand that says, we are this group, this is what we do, and everything is the same, so that when you see it, you go, I know who they are. I get it. It makes sense to me, and I'm on board. So the brand is the first foundational piece. Now, I do something called Absolute Marketing. I created it a couple years ago, and it is basically 5 days where we create all of your marketing for an entire year. Yeah, I know, it sounds crazy. Entire year.
That's crazy, Liz. That can't be right. You've got to explain.
So the brand is actually our first day. So we sit down for day 1 and we create a brand that resonates with your audience, and most of the time with you as well. Sometimes we have a little bit of a difference there. We need to resonate with the audience and not with the owner. But we want to resonate with the audience first, and then of course make the owners happy and everything, and the directors. But we create the brand and we go through the psychology of color, the psychology of fonts, how we lay things out, what we're going to be using it for, how it's going to be used in the future. So we're trying to build something that's has longevity to it. So this brand is not just going to be around for a year, it's going to be around forever, we hope. And so then we go into messaging and mission and vision, and then we write an ebook. That's day one. But that brand, we can't do any of the other 4 days without that brand. We have to build on that brand. It has to be the foundation, the bottom layer, that brick that we just build everything else on top of. Otherwise, all of that other stuff is going to be kind of meaningless if we don't know who we are, what we stand for, and how we present ourselves. So that's the first piece. It is very, very important. And if you don't have a brand currently, I would highly recommend talking with someone about this, because it is, like I said, that piece that may be actually the one thing that's holding you back. Maybe that piece you probably created maybe years ago or months ago, and you just it was almost like a throwaway piece. I'll just get a logo real quick. So this piece may actually be the piece that's kind of at the bottom of your pyramid here, and your pyramid goes like this, and it may be toppling your pyramid because it's not solid enough. So talk with somebody about that. If you're seeing issues with some of the marketing you may be doing is not working, and you're thinking, I'm trying everything. It's kind of like the whole dieting thing, like I've tried everything. And then somebody goes, oh, but you missed this foundational piece. Oh, well, that makes sense now. And now you can lose weight, right? All right, so the second thing we do, the day two, is the website. We start from scratch and we build an entire website in a day. I've seen people take years building websites, and there are some sites that just take a lot of time and they have a lot of components. I've worked with, corporate, I've worked with, big companies that, I worked with a racing company once, they sold racing tires, and they had so many components, and we were building intranets and all kinds of stuff for them. It took months, and it was great, it was fun. However, they had the time and the resources to put into that. Small businesses, nonprofits especially, they don't have the time and the resources. They need something that is ready, that will run, that will take payments, that will take donations, that will get the word out there, and that will give them a platform to host events and do ticketing and all kinds of stuff. So, and to sell merchandise even. So what we do is we simplify that process, and I believe that anybody you work with, they should be able to work with you on the level you need. A lot of times as agencies, and I've been guilty of this in the past, we kind of get this, well, you have to do our process and you have to do this our way. Well, while we still have a process so that we can work efficiently and quickly, we try to make sure that we're meeting the person and the group at their level where they are, because some nonprofits are here and some are not. They're getting there. And they may not have been in business very long, or they may not have been in an organization very long. And so what we want to do is find a way to meet each one at their level. So we have some nonprofits we work with that we've built websites for, where they're doing online book fairs and all kinds of crazy stuff. And it takes, we're creating things and doing things I never thought we would do. And then we're working with nonprofits that are just starting. They need some donations coming in. They need somewhere to put some blog posts. And that's all they can do right now. They are getting the word out there. They're hustling, and they're helping so many people and their small level so they can grow big and help more people. So, but the website isn't really possible unless we have that strong brand. We know who we are, we know who we're trying to help, and we know how we're going to present ourselves. So we're using that brand, those colors, those fonts. It makes everything go so much faster when that brand is solid and ready to go. And also, once we've gone over the messaging, what do we want to say? Who do we want to say it to? And how are we going to tell people what we're doing? That's what the website's for. It's like your big megaphone for the internet. And it just tells everyone exactly who you are and what you're doing. But once we go over that messaging information in the branding day, now we can move to the website, and it's just real quick and easy. And it puts out there everything we need to put out without putting out too much or putting out too little. But your website is a huge piece. Now, I actually think the website is another foundational piece, because all of your content from your marketing should go to your website. You should not be just posting on social media to post on social media just because. They should be going to your website. That should be the reason that you use social media, is to drive people back to your website. And if your website isn't very good, or maybe it doesn't have the right stuff on it, or maybe it's not converting, so meaning that it's not grabbing people when they get there, we want a converting website. And if it's not doing those things, or maybe the payment system doesn't work, or the donations aren't working, or you don't have the right things in your store, or the checkout's not working, all of those things can be huge issues and turn people away immediately. Another thing is the wrong color schemes, old websites, all of that stuff. Your website is a huge piece of how you use marketing. And if you're putting money into social media marketing and you're putting money into Google ads, Facebook ads, whatever else you're putting money into outside of your website, and you haven't touched your website in a while, that's a piece we need to go back and look at, because you need to make sure that all that marketing you're doing to pull people to yourself and to your group, they got somewhere to go. They got something to look at when they get there. So that's very, very important. All right, let's go to the next one, social media. So this is day 3 for us, and we love day 3. It is exhausting, but we still love it. We actually end up working with people and we create 12 months of social media in one day. And I know that sounds crazy. I know it sounds insane. We create 365 algorithm-proof social media posts, create, write, design, and implement, which means we schedule them in for one whole day. And this is something that I highly, highly, highly recommend for small business owners, especially for nonprofits. The reason I recommend this for nonprofits is because usually the director's the one doing all the things, wearing all the hats. And this can be extremely draining for them when they're trying to sit and put out fires and write emails and get donations and all the 50 million other things they're trying to coordinate. And then they get home, they go to bed at night, and then they sit up and they go, I forgot to post on social media. I've heard that from so many people, and it's so true. I think so many people go through this, and I've heard the stories of this, and like they get up in the middle of the night, they write on post-it notes, got to do this tomorrow, got to do this, got to remember that, and it's like that can be eliminated. Let's take this off of your plate. So I had developed a formula that is very simple and very easy, and basically we go through, we create a schedule for the week, and once that schedule is ready to go, we start writing those posts. Boom, 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 writing, creating graphics. And I do this with my clients, but I've actually had a lot of them do it in-house as well with their staff and their team. They set aside a day, they order in some lunch, and they just focus. And what I find is when you sit down for a day, and this is why our 5-day system like works really, really well and is insanely crazy fast, is because when you sit down and you let your brain focus on one thing at a time, and you're not distracted by anything else, you're not checking your phone, you're not, oh my gosh, I gotta let the dog out, I gotta do this, I gotta do this. The phone's not going off the hook, you're not checking email. I know, crazy, not checking email for a whole day. So once you let all that go, and the first 2 hours of the social media day or any of our full days is just chaos for the person. I mean, it's just, they're like, oh, and they kind of feel like that, like the itch, like I gotta check my phone, I gotta check my email. And the thing about that is you don't. And once your brain like recognizes that, and that first hour goes by and you're working on social media, and that second hour goes by and you're starting to get creative, your brain goes, wait, I only have to think about one thing for the whole day. That's it. Oh, I got this. Then it goes into hyper mode. It's crazy. And so I love seeing when clients have that happen, because they just get this hyper focus and they can just do so much in such a short time. And so I recommend that for people who just want to try it on their own. You can knock out maybe not 12 months when you first start out if you're kind of doing it on your own, but you could do 3 months. You could say, you know what, I'm going to sit down for the day, or for maybe half a day, from 1 to 5 today, and I'm just going to knock out all of my social media posts for the next 3 months and just be done. That's my clock again, sorry. I forgot it was chiming. So you can actually sit down and just create your schedule, start writing the post day by day by day. And once you sit down and you let your brain focus on that one thing, just takes off. It's incredible. And so that's another really great quick piece that you can do on your own at any point. The other piece that kind of goes along with that is blogging. Now, I'm going to tell a quick story about blogging, because I feel like it's so important, and a lot of people kind of discount it because, well, who's going to read my blog? I don't have anything to say. It's all been said. Those are some excuses I find people will use when I try to get them to blog. So I believe that you can write a blog post in 10 minutes. It should take you about a minute a sentence. And if you can write 3 sentences per paragraph and 3 paragraphs, that's a blog post. So it's 9 sentences. So can you write 9 sentences? I think so. And can you do it in 10 minutes? Maybe, probably, if you tried. So if you could do that, then you can write a blog post. They don't have to be long. Seth Godin is really one of the best marketers in the world right now, and he writes a lot of books. I'm sure you've probably seen some of them or read some of them. And his blog sometimes is 1 sentence. That's it. Other times it's paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs. So it's definitely something that's doable to write a 9-sentence blog. One of the things about blogging is in recent years, and actually in the recent, like I would say last year or so, Google has started to move away from the keyword stuffing and all that stuff we've seen with social media, search engine optimization, SEO. You guys have heard all these terms. Some of them you know, some of them you may not. But all of that stuff, right? Google is actually moving away from some of it. Believe it or not, their algorithm changes every day to begin with, but they're actually starting to make a dynamic shift away from that. And what they're moving towards is human marketing. That's what I call human marketing. And what that means is I'm a person, I have something to tell you, and I'm going to tell it to you in human terms without a bunch of keywords. And I'm going to tell it to you in a way that you're going to search for it. So for example, there's a company here in Jacksonville locally called Snyder Heating and Air. And they work with a company called PRC, which I love. They're amazing. And they're one of my colleagues. And they do a ton of search engine optimization, social media marketing. They do all the stuff that we do as well. And they do it for larger companies. And so what they did was they worked with Snyder and they said, okay, we're going to create some blog posts for you to put out on your website. And one of the blog posts that was on their site is a question. It says, how do I cool my second floor? I think that's what it is. How do I cool my second floor? Or how do I keep my second floor cool? Something along those lines. And what they found was that was one of the #1 search questions on Google. How do I cool my second floor? And a lot of the times the answers were very, very simple. Maybe it was their filter, maybe they needed to check their drain line, maybe their air conditioner, their compressor had gone out, maybe there was all these things, right? They could check before they call a person, right? So Snyder put together a list. They explained each thing, how to do it, very simple steps. Like I said, check your filter, is it clogged? Make sure your drain line, make sure you pour bleach, like all that homeownery stuff, right? And they just put those simple things. And at the bottom, they said, and if you have a problem and you can't, one of these things doesn't solve it, you call us. We're Snyder Heating and Air. So they left this on their website since 2013, I believe. Right now, in the last time I heard this story from PRC, they were getting around 3,000 hits a day. That only helps their local SEO. That only helps their local reach, even though a lot of those hits are from Canada, Europe, Asia, like all over the place, right? So even though and then all over the country. So they're not even here locally. They can't even use the service. But the reach that this article had, something so simple that you would think, well, people should know that, right? Sometimes they don't. And sometimes the way something is presented is going to be the key. It's going to be the ticket that makes it big. So how do I cool my second floor is a question that is asked a lot on Google apparently, and they used it as their title of their blog post. And let's say we did the same article and we said 5 things you should do to maintain your air conditioner every month. Sounds so boring, right? Ugh, boring. So which one would you actually click on? Maybe you're not even looking for 5 ways to maintain nobody cares about that in that term, right? It's how do I cool my second floor? I have an immediate problem. I'm finding an immediate fix for this. You're helping me. You're telling me how to do it. And now I've either fixed my problem or seen that you kind of know what you're talking about because you gave me all these free tips. So who am I going to call when I actually have an issue and I'm in your area and you're local to me, right? So it was just a really great example of how blogging can be extremely helpful, whether it's local people seeing it and you're being able to help local people, or if you're able to help nationally or internationally. So it doesn't really matter how far the reach goes. You're helping people regardless, and you're also helping your own marketing efforts by bringing in good SEO, more traffic, more traction, which only helps your website, which only helps your efforts locally as well. So it doesn't matter how far you're trying to reach, all of that's going to be helpful. So blogging is key. And having blogs that have some longevity, meaning something that's called evergreen, where you can actually write something today and it's great for the next year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years down the road. Because there's a lot of stuff in our content that we write, whether even COVID aside, right? Even beyond that, marketing principles haven't changed. I haven't changed any of our marketing principles, even with COVID, because those principles are the same pretty much today, now, and forever, until they change with the times, as far as, you know, a new platform comes out or something like that. So those little tweaks will always be there. But there's content about the psychology of color, the psychology of fonts. That content for me is the same. That's not going to change. So I'm sure that you have some of that type of content as well that you can use in blog posts, that you can use to explain things to people. And while the two examples I gave were more of like a selling aspect and having like a product or a service to sell, there are things like that in all types of organizations. So if you dig deep enough and you work with someone, I really believe in working with someone on the outside of your organization who can kind of look in and kind of see and cherry pick those great ideas that are just kind of sitting there, that you may not see initially, because you might be like under the tree and there's all the cherries and you're just looking ahead, and then someone comes in and they can see from the outside and they're like, wow, look at all these cherries, and you're like, wait a minute, where? So it's really great to have someone come in from the outside and look at that. Find a good friend, a marketing consultant, someone to come in and kind of look at it from a different perspective, so you can actually see all the great stuff you have that is evergreen. All right, and my last piece, which is email marketing, and I think I forgot to swap out this picture, but we'll look at her again. So we have email marketing. Now, email marketing is a way to stay top of mind with your customers, your clients, your constituents, your donors, and you're going to separate all those into different groups. So whether you have people who have purchased a product from you that you use for proceeds, whether you have someone who has donated money, whether you have someone who's donated time, and those would be your volunteers, or maybe you have people who are using your services, and they're the ones who are benefiting from what you're doing. So it's another group you would have in your email marketing. And you would want to send things out like your blog. You would also want to send out things like, for example, I'm speaking here today. I sent out emails about this, and I know that some of you joined us from that. And so those things are important to share out. Maybe you hit a milestone. Maybe you are starting a new campaign. Those things need to be sent out, and they need to be reminded of that. So not just, I didn't just send this out one time and say, oh yeah, I'm speaking on Wednesday, join me, and that was it. I sent this out maybe 3, 4, 5 times before it happened, so that people were reminded, oh yeah, I saw that the other day, I was going to sign up. Can't forget to do that. Another day goes by, they forget it. They get another email, hey, don't forget, one more day, we're going to gotta sign up. And it's just that reminder. So you know, you want to use reminders, you want to do new information, milestones, new campaigns, fundraising events that are coming up, and we will eventually get back to events, regular ones. So you want to promote those as well. There's also a ton of virtual fundraising options that you can do now. I actually started a company earlier this year, and it's a virtual trivia company, and so we do fundraisers for nonprofits that way as well. And that's something that, you know, virtual fundraising is so, it's like people have been doing it for a while, but it's kind of still on the edge. But now it's become so much more important and more prevalent. So email marketing is going to be a huge way that you can actually share this with people and get them to reshare it through their email, because sometimes social media gets overwhelming. I've had a lot of people I know go off of social media because of various reasons in the recent past, especially being home, everyone being home and kind of stuck on social media in a way. And so a lot of people are getting off of social media in some cases. And so what we want to do is have another avenue. And all of these things are going to be your touches. You know, you've got your brand, your website, your social media, and, you know, the appropriate ones anyway, and then your blogging, and then your email marketing. Those 5 pieces are going to create those 7 to 15 touches that you need for someone to go, okay, I'm ready. Sign me up. Where do I sign? Where do I put my donation in? How do I volunteer? They're going to be ready for whatever it is you're asking them to do. So we want to use all of these pieces. And then of course, which when we get back to it, the in-person networking piece is another aspect, an in-person like sales or in-person donation and fundraising capacity. So that's another huge piece that we're missing right now. So we have to rely on these 5 to really get us through for the next several months, if not longer, and just keep using these 5 because these 5 are always going to be around. And so I hope this information has helped you guys out. And I just wanted to add one more thing because I get this question a lot right before I end this. What should this cost me? And I get this question. It's the varying costs. I mean, this could cost you from the high end to the low end. It could be totally across the spectrum. But what we've done at my organization is we've tried to do something where we're telling people what percentage they should be spending, because when you work in nonprofit world and you're looking at all the budgets and everything, sometimes it doesn't come down to, okay, $1,000 is enough, or $50 on this, $20 on that a month, and $100 a year on that. Great. It more comes down to, what if we use a percentage? And using that percentage is always in our budget. Every year it's a line item, and we don't have to worry about growing our budget in that regard because the 4% will always grow as we grow. If we decrease for some reason, something happens, COVID, something crazy, and we don't have as much to give, as much to spend, then our percentage will decrease. So, and then we'll know how much exactly we have left over to utilize. And we can be creative with that. So we try to recommend about 4% of your overall 990, your total revenue number, as part of your marketing budget. That is your marketing budget, and it would cover all of the things I mentioned. We found that for a lot of companies, a lot of groups, that's sufficient. Some groups need more, some groups might need less, but we've seen that that's a great number just to start with and see where your organization needs to go, whether it's more or less in that regard. So 4% is a starting point. Some of our organizations go up to 7. Some of them are at like 3.5 to 4. So it just depends. But just to give you guys an idea, a starting point to look at and see if it might work for your budget. All right, my freebie for you is I do website audits. So if you want to know how good or not so good your website is, I am actually the Gordon Ramsay of websites. So I don't want to make you cry, but I do want to make you better. So if you'd like to have your website audited, you can go to beyondthecause.co/audits. I'm going to put that in the chat here as well. All righty here. Oh, I see lots of things in the chat now. I wasn't looking at the chat while I was speaking. All right, so I'm going to put this in here, beyondthecause.co/audits. All right, so you guys have that. And I hope that this has been helpful to you. And if you'd like that audit, I'd be happy to send you one. It does take me a couple days to get to them, but I will get to you guys as soon as I can. So hopefully you guys have had a good time today, and I'm happy to hear the questions if Allie's ready.
Yeah, well, just let them roll in. Good presentation, ladies. Lots of excellent information. I know I would have some questions. Okay, here we go. Would it be better and profitable to do video blogs instead to attract an audience? And if so, how many minutes long should a video blog or vlog be?
Well, I think video is okay. However, with the way that the internet is and will continue to be, even though what I mentioned about SEO not being so much keyword driven, it's still searchable. And videos are not searchable unless you subtitle them and you do transcriptions. So if you're going to do video, that's fine, but you absolutely have to have transcriptions. I'm going to give you guys a link also for, let's see. Okay, Camgar, and he does a daily video, and he does transcription and he does subtitles. So it'll give you an idea of what a video blog would look like, that you will need to do a little bit of extra work, some editing. You'll need to do the transcription, and you'll need to take the transcription and put it into subtitles. So he's got a really good example of that, and you can kind of see what that would look like.
Awesome, thank you. Any other questions? That was it. Are there any? Maybe you guys overwhelmed folks.
I'm not surprised.
Info overload. Yeah, that
That's
was
a lot
it.
of information for an hour.
Yes, exactly. And again, we can share the speaker's contact information. If you have further questions and wish to follow up, you are more than welcome to please do so. Or if you have questions that you don't feel apply to this format, I'm hearing none. We'll give them just another minute or two. Anybody needs to type in a question very quickly. I'm not seeing, not seeing any more coming in, guys. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and call it a day. Thank you, everybody, for attending. To our speakers, Linda and Elizabeth, thank you very much for this awesome information. We look forward to putting it to good use. Going once,
Thank you so
going
much for
twice
having
on the
us.
questions.
Thank you.
Oh, we got another one. Oh.
No, I think that's it, ladies. So I'll go ahead and
All right.
we'll sign off. And thank you again. Everybody have a good day.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.